Russia just suffered a major setback and the consequences could impact the whole world. But how does it affect the global balance of power, ongoing conflicts, and most importantly, Ukraine's future? After months of speculations, thousands dead, millions displaced, and hundreds of behind-the-door negotiations, something just happened that could change everything about this conflict. We are talking about a ceasefire here, ladies and gentlemen. Now that Ukraine has accepted the US proposed truce, the focus is on Moscow to choose their next move. As the full-scale invasion continues to rip more homes in Ukraine apart, will Russia eventually give in and opt for peace instead of war? Welcome back, everyone. Today we will discuss the answer to all these questions, as this is one of the most critical events in the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia's significant defeat has shocked the world. After watching this video, you will better understand what happened, why it matters, and what it could entail going forward. Let's get right to the point. To grasp the importance of this ceasefire, we must revisit crucial episodes in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. February 2022, Russian soldiers invade Ukraine. 2022 to 2023, battles for Kyiv, Mariupol, and the Donbas territory. 2024, on one side, sanctions damage Russia's economy. On the other hand, Ukraine obtains modern military help. In 2025, the ceasefire is about to happen. But why now? The truth is, Russia is facing massive challenges, not only on military fronts but also in politics and the economy. Ukraine might have the upper hand in this, as Russia is facing international sanctions on a large scale. However, this could also be considered one of Russia's tactical moves for a larger game. Let's begin with the current situation. On March 11th, Ukraine accepted a temporary 30-day ceasefire suggested by the United States, following hours of heated discussions in Saudi Arabia. While some praised this action as a breakthrough, others are still dubious. Moscow, in the meantime, has exercised caution. Before making any promises, the Kremlin has said it wants more information. Putin's spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, hinted that Russia would condition its agreements on lifting sanctions, which indeed could completely derail negotiations. Although the ball seems to be in Russia's court, contrarily, something is holding Russia back. Why, though, is Russia being hesitant? Its requirements hold the key. Months of unrealistic proposals from Moscow, including a pullout of NATO forces from Eastern Europe and territorial concessions from Ukraine, have rendered these demands almost impossible to fulfill. According to insiders, Putin is planning this bold move and may try to negotiate a deal out of this truce before officially peace talks even start. Will Putin seize this chance for peace, or is this only another deliberate action in line with his grand strategy? The question is simple, yet profound. Is this the beginning of the end of the war, or is this another turning point in history? When it comes to Ukraine, being willing to comply with this ceasefire is a hazard as well as an opportunity. President Zelensky has made it apparent that these 30 days will be used to negotiate long-term security assurances with Western-friendly nations. The recent achievements of the Ukrainian military in the vicinity of Toretsk and Pokrovsk have reinforced their position at the negotiation table. Nevertheless, will they be able to keep this momentum going if Russia continues its military actions in other regions? It is imperative to establish the context before proceeding. Let's start from the very beginning. What precisely transpired to result in this significant setback for Russia? For years, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has been ongoing, with numerous ceasefires that have been brokered and subsequently violated. Nevertheless, the most recent one was intended to be distinct. It was mediated by international powers and promised a temporary cessation of violence, thereby enabling the flow of humanitarian aid and the resumption of peace negotiations. However, it collapsed within a matter of days. Why? Multiple elements come together to form the solution. To start, there's the problem of trust, or more accurately, the complete absence of it. Almost immediately after the ceasefire was announced, both sides began accusing the other of breaking it. The second factor is the strategic significance of the contested regions. Both sides are unwilling to back down, turning cities like Bakhmut and Avdiivka into flashpoints. Finally, there is the larger geopolitical scenario. Ukraine's tackle was notably more determined than expected. Western backing rushed in. The war devolved into a bloody destruction battle along a 600-mile front line. Russia has sustained enormous casualties, with Western intelligence estimates ranging from 120,000 to 180,000 Russian soldiers dead or injured. Thousands of tanks, armored vehicles, and planes were destroyed. Russia kept up the pressure despite these setbacks, gradually expanding its territory in eastern Ukraine in the late 2023 and the first part of 2024. The conquest of Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and the Donbas advances showed that Russia was prepared to sustain massive losses in exchange for victories. Ukraine's counter-offensive attempts, however, encountered several difficulties. Progress was difficult because of the strong Russian defense lines, ammunition shortages, and delays in Western assistance. Even though Russia continued to have a numerical edge in both soldiers and munitions production, fatigue began to set in on both sides by early 2024. Russia had changed its approach from aiming for an immediate triumph to waging a war of attrition, relying on the idea that time was on Moscow's side, that Western backing would ultimately erode, and that Russian society could withstand the strains of war longer than Ukraine and its supporters. But what makes this ceasefire a significant blow to Russia? First, it stops Russia's operational momentum at a crucial time. In eastern Ukraine, Russian soldiers have been advancing gradually after surviving Ukraine's 2023 counter-offensive. Russia's military industry is now settling into its stride, manufacturing equipment and munitions at a pace Ukraine cannot match. Given the political controversies surrounding Western assistance to Ukraine, particularly in the US, Russia seemed poised to take advantage of the situation. According to military experts, Russia could have used freshly recruited troops to undertake a significant attack in the summer of 2024. By essentially stopping the war in its present course, the truce prevents Russia from using these advantages before Ukraine can get additional help or increase its domestic military production. On the flip side, this ceasefire allows Ukraine to retrain, rearm, and rebuild its military. Ukraine's President Zelensky has repeatedly said that any truce would be utilized to fortify Ukraine's position, not to relax. We must know that Russia has paid a high price for the conflict. According to the Institute for the Study of War, Russia has reportedly spent between $100 and $150 billion on direct military operations since the start of the invasion. Western sanctions have isolated Russia's economy, preventing technological access and necessitating costly workarounds for global commerce. Although Russia has fared better than many anticipated in overcoming these obstacles, primarily because of alliances with China, India, and other non-Western countries, the long-term picture is still troublesome. A ceasefire risks lessening the domestic urgency that has enabled Putin to restructure Russia's economy for wartime production, but it also offers the prospect of some sanctions relief. The ceasefire changes the story. Putin has been telling his people for more than 2 years that Russia was waging an existential war against NATO expansion, but now he needs to explain why the conflict has not reached the goals he first claimed. In the domestic arena, this poses a challenging communications issue that may weaken Putin's strong backing base throughout the war. Now let's address Washington's role in this mess. US policy has changed dramatically, with President Trump's administration resuming military deliveries and information cooperation with Kyiv after weeks of tense ties. This action sends a clear message to Moscow while supporting Ukraine. However, Trump still faces the formidable problem of maintaining unity among Western allies. This ceasefire has repercussions outside of Eastern Europe as well. Energy market experts are projecting steep price drops for oil and gas even during a short truce. However, economics aren't the only issue. An effective ceasefire might lead to more extensive peace negotiations or reveal further rifts among world powers. Russian forces, meanwhile, have been brutal at work securing recent victories. The Kremlin has been using recent developments in Kursk Oblast to claim victory in their propaganda. Is this an effort to improve their bargaining position or more of a diversion from their internal problems? Moving forward, these actions will only make an unstable scenario worse. The broader view is worth discussing. A worldwide problem, the ceasefire's failure to hold isn't limited to just one location. First and foremost, the fragile state of diplomatic initiatives in this crisis has been brought to light. The international community, Russia and Ukraine, lost faith in each truce that failed to materialize, which has serious consequences. Russia has a long history of using ceasefires to reorganize and restock its military forces. However, Ukraine and the international community have exposed their deceit on this occasion. Ukraine has made it very apparent by retaliating forcefully they are fighting for more than simply territory. They are fighting for their existence. Already the geopolitical consequences have begun to manifest. NATO has increased its support to Ukraine by providing cutting-edge weaponry and training. Russia is left out in the cold, as even longtime friends like China voice their worries. The critical issue, however, is whether or not a new Cold War is breaking out. The economic crises are yet another issue that comes with wars. Every war has its price tag, and this one is no different. Russia is facing increasing expenses. Their economy is in shambles because of sanctions, which have blocked them from accessing crucial markets and technology. Everyone from average Russians feels the squeeze as the ruble plummets and inflation soars. Inflation is high, GDP growth is low, and the ruble is weak. Military expenditure has reached levels not seen since the Soviet period, jumping to almost 8% of GDP. Conversely, the pain extends beyond Russia and affects the world economy. Worldwide supply systems have been disrupted, and skyrocketing energy costs have fueled inflation. Humanitarian costs include thousands of casualties, millions of individuals relocated, and the destruction of whole cities. There has been disruption to Russia's exports, which has caused price volatility and supply worries since Russia is a significant supplier of gas and oil. Grain shipments from Russia and Ukraine have grown more congested at the Black Sea ports, endangering food security worldwide. The movement of commodities along the Dnieper River, which was once vital to commerce in the area, has been dramatically reduced. This has had a drastic effect on nations that depend on these resources. The increasing cost of living and the lack of stability in the global economy have nations racing to find substitute suppliers. Economic domination is at stake in the struggle to control these waterways and ports. How much longer is this situation going to persist? Precisely, Russia's economy is affected by the ceasefire in many ways. Initially, it may ease war-related sanctions. Numerous Western nations have suggested that easing sanctions would require Russian withdrawal, repatriations, and a ceasefire. Secondly, another advantage is that it may help repair energy-related economic linkages. Before the war, Russia supplied 40% of Europe's natural gas. Europe has quickly adopted alternatives, hurting such alliances. A partial energy rebound to pre-war levels would benefit the Russian economy, but a complete recovery is unlikely. Third, it lets the economy resolve its needs. Russia's significant subsidies and assistance for sanctioned industries have helped stabilize its economy. If hostilities end, war finances may be used to stabilize the economy. However, Russia's military industry has risen rapidly, employing hundreds of thousands. Putin would have to deftly handle internal economic concerns caused by military demobilization or production reduction. Similarly, Ukraine will breathe a sigh of relief from this ceasefire and benefit from it in numerous ways. First and foremost, military and civilian deaths in Ukraine will rapidly be stopped. It gives devastated cities and towns time to rebuild. Ukrainian officials estimate reconstruction to be nearly $500 billion. In addition, the ceasefire will allow Ukraine to address its domestic issues, such as millions of people displaced and Russia's assault on its energy infrastructure. Approximately 6 million Ukrainians have fled their homeland, which may allow others to return. Further, the ceasefire protects Ukraine against land grabs and maintains the world's attention on the conflict. Russia might consolidate its advantages and organize additional attacks if the world's attention shifts, which is Ukraine's greatest fear. The truce concentrates public attention on Ukraine and reduces military pressure so that the Ukrainian government may prefer it over a protracted high-intensity conflict with uncertain Western support. It is estimated that thousands of people have lost their lives, millions have fled, and countless lives have been devastated. Despite their best efforts, relief agencies are struggling with the enormous humanitarian catastrophe. Nevertheless, there is hope even in the middle of the turmoil. Worldwide, mixed reactions can be observed. While some nations have shown their support for Ukraine, others have kept quiet or even backed Russia. It is not only about land or power. Instead, it is about principles and alliances. This division highlights the complexity of this battle. The question now is, where do we go from here? Progress will be impossible if Russia accepts the ceasefire but adds severe conditions. In contrast, flatly rejecting it would cast Moscow as a hindrance to world peace. Both parties will carefully consider their choices over the following several days. Is escalation more likely, or will diplomacy ultimately succeed? What does this leave us with then? Is Russia really suffering a massive defeat as a result of this, a ceasefire, or is it just a strategic halt that benefits the Kremlin? What follows will determine the answer in significant part. This may be a real turning point that eventually results in peace talks and Russia pulling out. Or there can be a brief break that gives both sides time to rearm before combat breaks out again with much more ferocity. The crucial issue for Russia is whether Putin can preserve political stability at home while the fight falls short of its declared goals. Will this result be accepted by Russia's many power centers, including billionaires, military leaders, and nationalist ideologues? The human cost of war, the economic burden, and the fragile nature of diplomatic attempts have all been laid bare by the ceasefire's collapse. But it's also raised more significant questions about the future of global power dynamics. Ukraine's issue is to make the most of this period while retaining international support. Can Ukraine bolster its economy, reassemble its military, and be ready for further conflict or challenging negotiations? If the current situation doesn't seem as urgent, will Western backers still be dedicated? The international community still needs to decide whether this ceasefire is only a temporary measure in a more intense conflict between Russia and the West that will present in various forms, or a step toward a more stable world order. What are your thoughts? Is Russia's acceptance of this ceasefire an indication of weakness, a covert acknowledgement that its risky bet on Ukraine has failed? Or is this a strategic attempt to end the fight amicably before more ground is lost? Please share your opinions in the comments section below, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more such content.